The Warhammer World Championship has begun. Almost 800 participants, almost $4,000 in prize money. This is the largest Total War Warhammer tournament in history. And today, in the moors outside Schwarzhofen, Alith Anar and Deathmaster Snikch will use the Schwartz and get bruised, battered, and bloody for our entertainment in a battle of assassin lords. He was a consul of Rome, who commands the High Elves, while Adept Vivar leads the Skaven. The Soothsayer and Falcon have already demonstrated on my channel before in tournament games how interesting and even this matchup can be, where both sides have a lot of choice in terms of builds and how to approach it. I've seen Dragon Prince and Silverhelm Rush builds, Frostheart Phoenixes, Alarial Death Blobs, and full-on Kite used to good effect here, but in this one, Consul of Rome has elected a very balanced build with Shadow Warriors in a forward position right at the start of the match. Skaven are actually a little bit light on infantry here, look to be relying on the power of weapon teams like Giselles and Deathglobe Mortars, with Warp Grinders in the rear, supporting a Plague Furnace in the center, with Rat Ogres doing heavy lifting out on the flanks. And it looks like the Plague Priest brought all 6 of his spells, which I'm pretty sure was a mistake. There's really no reason to ever bring your entire spell selection, because even someone like Manfred with his insane Winds of Magic pool won't be using it all efficiently. It's better to focus on 2 or 3 spells and save some of that money for more fodder or a better unit elsewhere. But the Skaven have the power of God and anime on their side, and everyone's favorite Kawaii Dasu Ugu protagonist is gearing up to stab, slay, and slice kill anyone that gets in his way. He's a threat to blobs of infantry or cav, and a huge threat to Alith Anar, who really stands no hope in melee with him whatsoever. The High Elves Vanguard play is pretty risky. He's already inside the fire arc of the Deathglobes, and it won't take long to lose a couple of Shadow Warrior units to all that firepower, but the Skaven are in range of them as well. High Elves kind of have a mix of everything, very balanced build, but no fear or terror, which is a bit rare against the Skaven, I think. The only thing that can offer that is Transformation of Khadon, with those Eagle summons, which we'll likely see from the Amber Mage hiding out on the right flank. No time to waste for either side. We're 15 seconds in, and already both factions are dropping models on important troops. One Shadow Warrior unit is already down to about 1/3 health. The other one about to get sent down below half, and the Deathglobes are, well, doing Deathglobe things. The damage they can unleash in short order is something you just cannot scoff at. The fact that these Shadow Warriors are already inside their fire arc means they are extremely susceptible to being torn apart by all this incoming fire, and the Giselles aren't going to make things any easier for them either. This is going to be brutal for quite a few of these Shadow Warrior models, and this second volley coming in now, yeah, that'll send that Shadow Warrior unit down to about half health. The Azure response will be one of aggression, with the Illyrian Reavers trying to sneak through all this infantry, which, to be fair, there aren't a lot of waves of infantry on the Skaven side, and the Deathglobes have been in range of the Shadow Warriors this entire time and just routed off. Illyrian Reavers somehow caught out the Wolf Rats, and what I really think happened here is the Skaven were not expecting a Vanguard build coming out. He was not expecting to see that many Shadow Warriors inside the range of his mortars that early on, and he's paid for it because the Deathglobes are already routing. They should return. They have some models left, so if he's able to protect them, they'll be okay. They can still do a lot of damage. Nice Warp Crate coming out in the rear. Illyrian Reavers trying to get into the Warp Block Giselles, but nicely pinned down, and with some support from the Skaven infantry, they should be taken down no problem. Giselles also in the fire arc of these Shadow Warriors, and that's painful. They do have 70 armor and a silver missile block chance, but really not ideal to have 3 or 4 Shadow Warrior units shooting into your Giselles right at the start of the match. So Skaven need to push forward, get their infantry up, and start putting some pressure on the Shadow Warriors. Otherwise, they could lose a lot of their really important troops early on and might be tough to come back from. He slammed everything into the High Elves' right flank, but a Transformation of Khadon Eagle Summon screeching in from the rear will be painful and might imbue some fear, cause some chain routing over on that side. Silverhelms just took a nasty volley from the Deathglobe Avalanche Mortars, who have returned to the fold now. And overall, I'd say it's a decent start for the High Elves. We got some good focus fire on some of the high-value targets on the Skaven side, but despite a rather rocky beginning, Adept Vivar seems to be crawling this one back with some nice play, sweeper play in the back line from those pit fighters of Hell's Deep, and Snikch, the Deathmaster, is in and amongst the infantry now. Now, of course, he would much rather be chasing after the mage or slaying Alith Anar, but the only way he can do that is if he busts through the center, and because he didn't go very heavy on the infantry side, and of course clan rats and slave rats can't be expected to win the infantry grind anyway, that means Snikch will have to put in some anime work and get Naruto up in this hoe, slice into High Elf Spearmen left, right, and center, and he'll carve a path through them and try to move on to something more important. If he can get on top of Alith Anar, it shouldn't take more than 5 or 6 swings before the Shadow King is in big trouble. So Consul of Rome will be content to sit back with Alith Anar, pick away at the Plague Furnace and all this other stuff from a safe distance. And of course, if someone does get on top of him, maybe drop a clone. Another nasty volley coming in from the Death Globes, getting rid of some Azure Spearmen. Warp Grinders now in range of the Shadow Warriors, who have dealt 3 force damage on the Death Globes, killed off a couple Jezzail units, and are now moving on to the Warp Grinders. So leaving all your weapon teams in range of the Shadow Warrior play. Well, it's obvious who the MVPs are for the High Elves up to this point. But the Skaven are swarming back. Everything that routed off on the High Elves' right flank has returned to the fold, and the summons are going to play a crucial role in the Thagaraki's game plan here. We've seen a Plague Monk summon, and we've seen a couple Vermintide summons. They're on top of the Shadow Warriors, have tied down 3 full units. If I was Consul of Rome, I think you want to Delta split with the archers there, make sure they can't all get tied down by a single summon, and some Pestilent Breaths, the Cauldron, bubbling over and imbuing disease and decay amongst the Azure battle lines, ripping through the spears on the left flank of this Plague Furnace. Now, dueling the Mage, and that's not where she wants to be. She's going to try her best to run away, but now the Deathmaster is after her too, and this is getting super scary. You better run, girl. That's a nightmare situation for the Amber Mage. She is sprinting, huffing and puffing for her very life, looking like a Scooby-Doo skit, just getting chased by the main villain, and I don't know if she's going to be able to run away. Snikch has an opportunity now to dive into the middle of the Azure ranks, and there we go. The Whirlwind of Blades. We have not seen that yet this game, but boom, it's going to hit, and it's going to do a lot of damage. He was fully surrounded, and in fact, it was used at a perfect opportune time because it was right after an animation that carried him into the middle of their ranks. Got full value there, and now the Rat Ogres have returned and slammed into some Shadow Warrior victims. They won't be around for too much longer after a charge like that one. Big Whirlwind coming out of Snikch here. He's got a ton of kills, up to 83. We're only 4 minutes in, and he is cleaving through that Azure infantry. Shadow Warriors have mostly used all their ammunition, and they actually double pretty okay in melee as well. Sure, they're not going to beat stuff like Plague Monks or Storm Vermin, but against Clan Rats and Slave Rats, they can more than defend themselves. So High Elves, once they're out of ammo, won't be in that bad of a situation, but the balance bar is in favor of the Skaven right now. And Consul of Rome is doing the right thing as the Mage just goes flying from a Rat Ogre charge. He is focusing Alith Anar and that Moonbow of Lilith on the Plague Furnace, trying to get that thing off the field. That drain, that HP DOT over time is such a pain for High Elf infantry, and they don't have a lot of tools for killing it. Alith Anar might be the only one that has a chance of bringing down the Plague Furnace. Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep slamming into the flank of these Rangers and ripping them asunder. That unit is completely isolated all by its lonesome on another side of the battlefield. Nice focus fire coming in on the Rat Ogres, but they are all about to be out of ammunition. In fact, one of the units just ran out. Snikch is still fighting High Elf infantry. He's been a little bit sad this game. I mean, he's got tons and tons of kills, but it's not a massive amount of value he's generated up to this point because it's only been 500 gold fodder infantry. Still though, to see him up to 100 kills in 5 minutes is very impressive. You can see he wants to push through, but Consul's done a good job of tying him down up to this point. Plague Priest down to 1100 HP. He's up to 105 kills, and that corrosive bile has drained the life of many of these Azure troops. Finally, the Rangers break. Rangers are an amazing infantry choice against the Skaven. It's probably a go-to include in pretty much any build you're gonna bring, unless you go full kite, simply because they have that cheap bonus versus infantry, and they're so good at cleaving through lightly armored targets. Snikch is now running from the majority of the High Elf battle line. and the Plague Furnace just routed off to an Illyrian Reaver charge and some melee from the Shadow King. Azure Spears trying to do something to stem the Vermintide, but they're screaming down the hill. The Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep are rampaged. Their melee stats are going to be absolutely bananas, but their model count is low, and they're now fighting bonus versus large troops. So we'll see if these spears can hold the line here. They seem to be doing well at the moment. Rear charge coming in from the remnants of those Illyrian Reavers, and Snikch fully surrounded. Deathmaster is going to have to put the team on his back. There's not a lot of Skaven infantry or much of a Skaven army left at all. Warpquake from the Warp Grinders, huge seismic AoE, draining the life of tons of the Azure troops, and the High Elves are routing off from it. That might swing this in the Skaven's favor even more at this point. Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep, their Frenzy, their Rampage, it's keeping them in the fight for now with only a handful of models left. Their leadership has stabilized. They're doing okay, but the Shadow Warriors and the High Elf Spears are just piling into the breach. Once more unto the breach, my friends. Once more, or close those walls up with our High Elf dead. And Consul countered that Warpquake with his very own Flock of Doom, which saw a lot of the Skaven troops start routing. Got a ton of value from that spell cast. The Deathmaster has been operating isolated by himself for the majority of this game. He's gotten tons of kills, up to 160 now, and shows no signs of slowing down. But a lot of his army is beginning to waver and rout. Rat Ogre's pinned in place. Alith Anar may not be the best melee combat lord, but he certainly has enough punching power to drop models, especially when he's supported by some rear charges. And this High Elf infantry unit about to be donezo. Snikch has carved his way through all of them and will continue to do so well into this replay. More Azure Spears trying to stuff him up, trying to deal whatever damage they can, but the Whirlwind of Blades is just an outpouring of devastating combat potential and big dick energy, and Snikch is going to get more and more powerful as he drops low. I don't think it ever accurately reflects on the stat screen or on his unit card, which I'm not really a big fan of, but he does deal a lot more damage as he drops low in health. The closer he is to death, the harder he hits, the more dangerous he is in duels. So Alith Anar better be careful, because you know the Deathmaster will be trying to gun for him. Keep him back, keep him safe, let your chaff and fodder do its work, but there won't be a lot of chaff or fodder remaining after a second Whirlwind of Blades slices through dozens of the High Elf troops. And the Deathmaster, well, he has his eyes set on one thing and one thing only. If he can get on top of Alith Anar and drop his HP low, he might be able to cause a mass rout here. But the balance bar has swung back in the favor of the High Elves. They're continuing to throw bodies his way. They're continuing to try to stuff him up, slow him down, do whatever they can. But the Deathmaster is through. The Sigil is down. Alith Anar is in big trouble getting backstabbed, and he can't run away. He is pinned in place. Shadow Warriors trying to rally to their lord. Flock of Doom going down because there's nothing else the Amber Wizard can cast now. She's already used both her Eagle summons. Might as well use your Winds of Magic, even if it only does 5 damage. That might be the difference in this game. The Assassin Lord of the Skaven, leader of Clan Ashen, down to 1000 HP. Slippery is active, giving him more speed and melee defense. And it seems like there might just be a little bit too much on the field for the Deathmaster to deal with. He can't quite snipe out Alith Anar, though he dropped him to 2/3 health. And that is going to be the end of the game. Snikch ends up leaving this battlefield with 245 kills. Plague Furnace with 108. Alith Anar with 26. But as we'll notice with that damage value, the Shadow King was maybe the MVP in this one, even though the Deathmaster was a bit more stylish. And certainly more eye-watering amount of carnage. So the Avalanche Mortars, 105 kills. Pit Fighters of Hell's Deep were used pretty efficiently as a backline sweeper to get rid of the Silver Helms, but the Jezzails and the Deathglow Mortars being in range of the Shadow Warriors right at the start of the match was a problem. And you can see that Alith Anar, well, he was at 1800 damage value, which was actually slightly more than Deathmaster himself. So, what did we learn there? Alith Anar shooting into the Plague Furnace can generate much more value much more quickly And the Deathmaster can try to carve through hundreds of High Elf spearmen. If you're the Skaven here, I think you need to bring a little bit more infantry. Seeing only 5 slaves and 1 clan rat, that seems a little bit low. You want to just throw body after body after body their way, and having more fodder there to push those Shadow Warriors back, to swarm forward, to go for that full Vermintide is really the play in this one. You gotta retreat your Giselles, retreat your Avalanche Mortar once you see the Shadow Warriors are in range of them. I get wanting to stay in the pocket and trade because you can do a lot of damage really quickly, but in the end, forcing those back, the Giselles really not paying for themselves, hurt the Skaven there, and Consul of Rome looks like he'll be moving on.